Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's get settled in. List. It's good to see you all here today. House is now in session. Now that we've got you all here. Madam Chair.
Can I start with House Bill 54?
You can start with whatever you like.
Thank you. That's my easy one. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Happy birthday, Eve.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair and Committee, I'm Delegate Vanessa Atterbury here to ask for your favorable report on House Bill 54. So House Bill 54 just does three things, and it has been amended. We amended it to add the language heir or legatee, which a legatee means you are inheriting something under a will, and heir means outside of the will. So we added that legatee language in there. So what the bill does, three things. It requires the tax sale ombudsman to contract with a vendor to operate a payment plan program for payment of property taxes in advance, arrears, or currently that are due. It authorizes counties and municipalities to create an installment payment plan for taxes that are in arrears on residential property. And it provides an exemption for transfers of residential property from an estate to an heir or legatee from requiring all taxes assessed and other fees be due upfront prior to the transfer. And that's all the bill does. And I would ask for a favorable report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, may now move to House Bill 1319.
Sure.
And I would like to bring up Ms. Michelle McGregor, who's here for technical questions. Should anybody have any?
Okay.
Let me get the right folder here. So again, Delegate Vanessa Atterbury here on House Bill 1319, asking for your favorable report. This is an internet gaming authorization and implementation bill that passed out of the House 92 to 43. I mentioned Ms. McGregor is here. She is the senior advisor to the SBA, the Sports Betting Alliance, which represents BetMGM, FanDuel, Fanatics, and DraftKings, and is happy to answer any technical questions that you may have related to the industry that I cannot answer. I think it's important that everyone on this committee know that this is a very different bill than my good friend Senator Watson's bill. This is not a cross-file of that bill. I did not cross-file that bill. This legislation is part of a revenue package that passed the House, and it'll do several important things. First, it will generate funds that are dedicated to the blueprint. Second, it will generate funds specifically for jurisdictions that have brick and mortar casinos like Anne Arundel County, like Prince George's County, Cecil County. Third, it will generate funds for all jurisdictions based on the school age population in that district. Fourth, it generates funds for the Problem Gaming Fund. And lastly, fifth, it creates a $10 million fund for possible cannibalization of jobs in the brick and mortar industry for salary recoupment, should that happen. So I also thought it would be good for me just to provide a background of why I put this bill in. I do not gamble and have no interest in gambling, really. I might go to the brick and mortar casino for a little show. I went to see Tommy Davidson, which makes me old, not too long ago. But I put this in because I'm very passionate about our children, which I know all of you are. And as all of you know, we are running out of blueprint funds come 2028. And so this is the House's way and the way that Ways and Means came up with to generate funds specifically for the blueprint. Because if you've heard me talk, I am passionate about not walking back on that commitment, particularly to our pre-K 3 and 4 year olds, and neither is Chair Barnes. And so this is what the House came up with. I make it kind of akin to cannabis. Cannabis, I actually would not have legalized it. Went to a referendum. The people said we want to do it. That's exactly what's going to happen here. It'll go on the ballot, and we will take an already illegal market, here in the state of Maryland, there you can do illegal gaming, iGaming, to the tune of $200 million a year on your phone with no safety for individuals who have problem gaming. So this would address that issue. So one, I just want to walk through the bill quickly. Try to be quick. There's a lot in this bill, but I'm going to do my best. I'm sure my senator will be giving me the cut it off. So I already
Take
mentioned.
your time, delegate.
Thank you. Thank you. That's why I have the best senator. Sorry, no shade to anybody here. I already mentioned this will go on the ballot, so it will be a referendum. Second, it requires the State Lottery and Gaming Control Commission to regulate iGaming, just as it does lottery. Third, I put in my own bill because this bill specifically focuses on diversity. The legislation is designed in a way that promotes the implementation of the law in a manner that maximizes the ability of minorities and women to participate in the iGaming industry. It does that in a couple of ways, similarly to how we did cannabis. Social equity ownerships. All licensees must demonstrate at least a 5% ownership by an individual that qualifies as a social equity applicant, or have a profit sharing agreement with a non-management employee that qualifies as a social equity applicant. A social equity applicant is defined in the bill, and I'm happy to go over that if anybody wants to know. It also defines economically disadvantaged area, which is also defined in the bill, and ties in diversity. Each licensee has to submit a diversity plan within 30 days after being awarded a license, and requires meaningful minority participation in procurement of goods and services related to internet gaming. At a minimum, the commission has to consider certain factors. This is just a baseline minimum when awarding the licensee, including the ownership percentage, the percentage of proceeds that the applicant proposes to retain, their financial stability, a workforce development plan for iGaming employees here in the state of Maryland, and the applicant's plans for employing individuals in the iGaming industry who reside in certain economically disadvantaged areas, and the applicant's responsible gaming programs. Okay, so let's get to the meat, the licenses. This was changed from when the bill was initially put in. So all of our brick and mortar casinos will get a license by right. So that's 6 licenses for the brick and mortars that we currently have here in the state of Maryland. You can get up to 3 licenses. The second and third license are provided if the casino can demonstrate that the second license has 33% ownership by a social equity applicant, then they can go ahead and get that third licenses. If the casino doesn't apply for all 3 licenses, then those licenses fall into a pool of competitively awarded licenses. Also in the bill, it specifies that the Class B sports wagering facility licenses that are in OTB but not racetracks will get a license. A large bingo halls and an entity that held an ownership interest in a VLT operator, among other things. And then there will be a pool of, at a minimum, 5 competitively bid licenses. The license term will be 5 years. The license fee is $1 million that can be paid over a period of time in installments that the commission will come up with. And the renewal fee is 1% of the revenue of the preceding 5 years for the licensee. Where does the money go? The revenue. First, based on the one report of the 5 that we had 5 reports, and actually another one just came out. So we had 6 reports. Only one said that there would be cannibalization, and due to concerns about job loss and possible cannibalization, off the top, the House decided to create a $10 million fund for anybody who works at a brick and mortar. If you are displaced by your job, you can go and get your salary on top of getting unemployment from the state. And the Department of Labor will manage that and come up with the regs on how that's to work. 1% of the revenue will go to the Commission for administering the program, 1% to the Problem Gaming Fund, and 1%, this is really important, to local jurisdictions for funding education based on the amount of school-age kids that you have in your districts. This is a direct response to all of our jurisdictions that have been basically complaining to us about how much the blueprint costs. The tax rate, which my friend next to me does not love, and I will admittedly say that the casinos do not like, is 55% and 20% if you decide to have live dealer games here in the state of Maryland. That's to encourage live dealers here in the state of Maryland. We also did a promotional play tax structure, which I won't read off to you, but I'm happy to talk about, which is basically a tax liability deduction based on your revenues, so that folks can do promotional play, and that ends after 6 years. There's no promotional play, but say Senator Elfrith is playing on her phone and she gets a little like, oh, free dinner, then she might say, oh, Vanessa, come with me to the free dinner. That's an example of promotional play. Labor, there's labor peace language in the legislation. A licensee must remain neutral on opposing or supporting the selection or deselection of collective bargaining. There is a very, very large section related to responsible gaming, which the House, and in particular the Ways and Means Committee, which I think half of them are behind me, took very seriously. So it includes things like age verification. You have to be 21 and periodically checking that. Limits on spending, and your spending can be suspended or cut off. A ban on the use of credit cards. Currently, the brick and mortars use the voluntary exclusion program. That is going to be mandatory. Counseling is going to be mandatory. If you go to the voluntary exclusion program and say, I have a problem with gaming, protection on consumer data, prohibition on advertising to individuals that are at risk for problem gambling. The Maryland Center for Excellence on Problem Gaming has to report annually from their database the impact on iGaming, including the increase in problem gambling and the impact on at-risk individuals. And then we also have a language in there on embargoed businesses. You can't do business with a terrorist state. The commission has to study the impact of online gaming and platforms that are being used. It was also important, particularly, I think this was Senator McCray, this was Delegate Young's insistence that taking a look at ancillary effects. He was very concerned about what would happen to businesses around Horseshoe. And so each year the commission has to study and annually publish a report on the effects that iGaming has on businesses around brick and mortars. So just letting you know, that was his idea. And there's some other responsible gaming things in there. So other provisions in the legislation, live dealer studios have to be located in the county in which the brick and mortar is, and those jobs have to stay in the state of Maryland. There's currently Morgan and Bowie have a program taking a look at problem gaming and doing some data analytics. That's going to continue. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will just wrap up by reiterating that we already have iGaming going on in the state of Maryland. It is illegal. You have folks going on their phones or their computers and doing iGaming with, I don't know, somebody in Curacao or somewhere far away, not here in the state of Maryland. I think it is incumbent upon us to regulate, to capture that market, regulate it, and get rid of the illegal market. By doing that, you can put safeguards in it for folks that are worried about problem gaming. There are no safeguards with illegal iGaming happening right now. Absolutely no safeguards. I also do want to say that 1% of gamblers is the statistic that was given to me that have an issue with problem gaming, and that number has remained constant over the past 30 years. There are currently 6 states that offer iGaming: New Jersey, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Delaware, West Virginia, and Connecticut. Rhode Island is going live this year, and Nevada has online poker only. With that, I am happy to answer any questions or have Ms. McGregor answer any questions, and thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Questions? Senator Benson.
Your testimony is a lot for us to digest if you really want to know the truth about it. Have you all had an opportunity to look at the report that was issued from Morgan State University, which was nonpartisan, and also the impact that it will have on people of color. Have you done that?
I have not.
That's number one. Number two, can you speak to what you think will happen to the casinos where you have a thriving business that's surrounded by thriving businesses? If we have this our gaming, whereby our adults, our children, and everybody can play 24 hours a day. The first and the most important is the report from Morgan State, which I take very serious.
I have not, Senator.
You haven't had
seen
that opportunity?
No, but I will take a look at that. And
I'm telling you, if you look at it, it is pretty devastating for people of color. It really is. It's very devastating. It's also devastating because they are of the opinion that of the damage that is going to have on the casinos that are already operating in the state of Maryland as it pertains to employment. It's a very, very thorough report, but it pretty much is devastating for people of color.
I'm going to ask Ms. McGregor to answer the question related to the brick and mortar casinos.
Yes, thank you, Senator, for the question, and Mr. Chair. That's an incredibly important question, and when as part of SBA and when our clients started looking at the benefits of iGaming, that was of course a number one consideration. And the data that we saw based on what exists among our client base, and then substantiated by a couple studies that have come out recently, they do reinforce the dynamic that iGaming is additive to casino gaming, to casino land-based gaming. And we really strongly believe that's the case. As the chairwoman mentioned, there are 6 states that are live with iGaming currently. Some data is far back to 2013 when the market was legalized in New Jersey. So there is a lot of data that we can now look at over the past several years to see what the trend lines were their land-based casinos before iGaming was introduced, and then what has happened in the aftermath. And I think the really positive results, and this is again quantified by a recent study that is longer than you'd ever want to read, but it breaks down what the trends were before iGaming was introduced. And across the 6 states, data substantially shows that iGaming revenue is additive to land-based casino gaming. In fact, for states where casino gaming was, the revenue was on the decline or stagnant, they have since seen increases in their land-based revenue. So I think that would reinforce sustainability for jobs and for even the existing businesses around casinos. And part of that, I think, is why casinos embrace iGaming, is because it is another way to attract customers to their bread and butter product, which is the land-based operations.
That is not what the report, if you look at the report from Morgan State University, that's not what it says. Yeah. The thing that gives me heartburn is the number of jobs that are going to be lost, and also what's going to happen to the businesses that are close to these casinos. The report is very, very thorough, but it also, I have to tell you, you all really need to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Questions? Any other questions? I have a couple, hopefully that are quick. And I apologize if I missed this. On the problem gaming program, did you say how much money, maybe as a percentage or?
1%.
1%. And then as you pointed out that you were looking to deal with social equity issues and such, as we've dealt with a number of issues in the past, we've dealt with the need for diversity studies. Did that come up, and how did that get resolved?
So we did what we did similarly to in cannabis. And so we spoke to the AG, this did not require a diversity study. But we tried to use a lot of race neutral language in here and incentives for, quite frankly, the larger brick and mortars to partner with folks like Riverboat in Southern Maryland, which is 100% minority owned. I mean, this is an amazing opportunity for them, and I think folks have already reached out to them in hopes that this passes, that they could partner with them. And so if they got 3 licenses, they could have one branded as, you know, the riverboat, iGaming, whatever.
Thank you. Other questions from the committee? Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, I'll see you in a half an hour. I guess we've just got these teed up in numeric order. So is that correct? I have to take one more, excuse me. What number?
1390.
1390? Who's got 1390?
Might have to bring up our great heartbeat of appropriations.
You're gonna have to explain later why you jumped in front of all your colleagues.
Great afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair is absent, and the awesome Budget and Tax Committee. I'm Delegate Kevin M. Harris, represent the Legislative District 27A, which covers Charles and Prince George's County. Thank you for the opportunity to present House Bill 1390 before you today. As we've seen time and time again, schools have become targets for violence, both nationally and statewide. Schools are seeing rising levels of violence. In one of Maryland school districts, there has been 65% in serious incidents as reported by school officials. Violence in our schools impact our schools and community stakeholders. Without the necessary funding, individual schools districts will be forced to decide between education and safety. By providing schools with access to funding, they need to ensure their students and staff and faculties are safe. We free up necessary funding that can otherwise be used for educational priorities. The removal of the grant deadline on the school safety program reflects a commitment to both school safety and education. So that's the main piece of the bill. The second main piece of the bill that we had amended is to, one is to repeal the scheduled termination of the school safety grant program. 2, reduces the mandate appropriated for the Nancy K. Cup Public School Facility Priority Funds by $10 million annually beginning in fiscal year 2027. We alter the purpose of the PSFPF only for fiscal year 2027. Under specific conditions and current law required that the state to begin making payments to Prince George's County for a public-private partnership in fiscal year 2025 instead of 2026. Make various changes to the governance of the Prince George's County P3 agreement, establishes the work group and assessments and funding of school facilities, and clarifies the legislative intent regarding annual funding levels for school constructions. And that will be my testimony for House Bill 1390, and stand for any questions. And we have our analyst, Michelle Lambert, here as well.
Very good. Questions? Delegate. Okay, thank you very much. I see that you're gonna do these 2 Prince George's County bills?
Say again?
Do you have 2 more bills to do?
No, that's it.
Okay, all right. You got those? We've got different things on it. We're fine, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a little confusion up here. Why is that? Delegate Kaiser. House Bill 16.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you so much. Good to be here with all of you. I'm here today on House Bill 16, and well, I do love you, Mr. Chairman. I have the best senator, so I just want to make sure that's said there on the record, Senator Zucker. Anyway, I'm before you here today on a bill, House Bill 16, about tax sales, the homeowner protection program. And I want to thank you all in the past 3 or 4 years. this committee and the House committee helped me with creating the homeowner protection program back in 2021 and dealing with the fact that tax sales in a lot of cases can really destroy families and those who have little wealth and income, and the process can be quite predatory. And so by creating this homeowner protection program, we've been able to minimize costs for homeowners, help them pay their taxes and so forth. The law at the time created a special non-lapsing fund at $750,000 a year, which is ending, but the fund is sustained by tax and interest payments as well as interest earnings, but SSTAT has not been able to enroll as many people as they could. So this bill is designed to do three things. Two are related to funding. First, there will be a $15 fee on each tax sale certificate. I'll come back to that in a second. And second, that SSTAT will encourage people to make voluntary contributions. And then the third provision is a notice provision, and so much more of what the kinds of things we should be doing in government. We create so many great programs, but we don't do always a great job of connecting the details, explaining it to people, making it in a format easy to understand, and getting that information out there. So we already have the tax sale ombudsman, but this would just be, we would be inserting someone in everyone's property tax bill about the homeowner protection program. So that's a pretty easy part. So I do want to address something in terms of the cost. You may hear from the opponents that this $15 fee, want to be clear, it's not for each bid at tax sale, but each certificate. And this fee was thoroughly vetted through MACO. All the jurisdictions were asked what would be a fee that could help make a little bit of money for this program without disincentivizing the investments. That is, to not deter the investors. And so I assume you have that testimony from MACO that this $15 fee is nominal. It would only raise $180,000 across the state, but you probably hear from SSTAT that they're only able to help about 50 people in the program now, and through this extra funding, they could get up to 125. And those are people who are in deep economic trouble that can use the help from this program. And with that, I thank you for your attention to this important issue, and I urge a favorable report on House Bill 16.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks. Great seeing you all. Take care.
See you. House Bill 63, Ellie Prisky.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am here for House Bill 63. There actually was a cross file with Senator Giles, Senate Bill 6. But this is a property tax credit for a dwelling of disabled veterans. Two things that this bill does. Number one, technical. It actually updates the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, which should be in code. And second, this bill adds 100% non-permanent disabled veterans. For those of you that don't know, I know because I had an uncle who served in Vietnam, who I cared for when as an adolescent moving on, who had to go through the disability process, and it's very difficult. Certainly the VA has tried and it's gotten better, but when you go and obviously for your medical appointments and rating, you're considered at a certain level of disability, and there's permanent and non-permanent. I have to give the example because we actually had someone in Anne Arundel County reach out, a gentleman who has testicular cancer and also colon cancer, could not work, couldn't afford bills, and certainly had significant issues. And he raised this question: being non-permanently disabled, is it possible to get that tax credit? And again, that was something that came forward. Again, with this bill, you have to provide a copy of your discharge certificate, but also your current permanency or non-permanent disability, which, by the way, can change. You can switch, obviously, depending on the status. But in summary, this bill is about to cover veterans that currently aren't covered for that 100% of non-disabled. And we all know that especially disabled veterans make up a small portion in Maryland, but they face the greatest challenges. And that includes the quality of life, their employment, and their healthcare decisions. I want to thank this committee for hearing me out today. I'm certainly here to support and answer any questions, and I ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. House Bill 66, Delegate Charkoudian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Delegate Lori Charcudian asking for favorable report on House Bill 66. This is an enabling tax credit bill. It came at the request of a county council member in Montgomery County, but certainly hopefully would be helpful to counties across the state. It enables tax credits for counties in 3 areas. One is for educators to live near the schools that they teach in. The second is health and safety improvements in rental housing and in condos. And the third is in homeless, in the rapid rehousing for people either homeless or at risk of homelessness. And so landlords who participate in those programs for rapid rehousing have an opportunity to get tax credit. So those are the 3 areas it enables. We hope it helps with homelessness, with education, and with health and safety. And I'm open to any questions.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
House Bill 100, Delegate Carden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be over here. House Bill 100, which is not cross-filed, came from a constituent who would have been benefited from this, but it's too late now. This deals with inheritance tax, wherein if there are oftentimes the tax you would pay if you inherit, if you're not one of the a close relative, father, son, sister, brother, spouse. Let's say you inherit from an uncle a house, and the house is worth $500,000, $500,000, which is not unreasonable. You would have to pay $50,000 in taxes and inheritance tax, and the person couldn't afford to pay it in order to use the house. They would have to then sell the house, which would not make any sense in order to pay the taxes on the house. So what this bill, as it came in, it basically said, Mr. Chair, that you could, that based on the federal guidelines of what would be income based on a person who qualifies for discounted loans, student loans, so I think it's 125,000 mean income for adjusted gross income for an individual, or 250,000 for a married couple. You would qualify to have a reduce your inheritance tax if you are either living or going to live in this household as your primary residence. And you could either take whatever the inheritance tax rate is, or 20% of your mean of your adjusted gross income. So if your adjusted gross income is $100,000, instead of it being a $50,000 tax bill, it would be a $20,000 tax bill. That's how it came in. This Ways and Means Committee amended it to reduce the fiscal impact, to basically say that you could come up with a payment plan in order to pay it if you're going to use this residence as your primary residence. I think that it's just good fiscal policy that if somebody's going to inherit a property and they're going to use it as their primary residence, we should make sure that they can actually live in the residence. And if they're inheriting it and they have to sell the house in order to pay for the taxes, that doesn't make any sense. So that's the idea behind the bill. I hope that for future people who might be impacted, that we can use this bill. And it has no fiscal impact based on the amendments of Ways and Means.
Very good. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
House Bill 165. Dale Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I will be very, very brief. And also I want to say I do have the best senator in Joanne C. Benson of Hagerstown, Maryland.
Speaking of which, I watched a show last night on MPT, and the senator was featured, and you might all want to look at that. It's the house on Jonathan Street. House on Jonathan Street. It's all about the history of Hagerstown. Really excellent. I got I got captivated by it. I watched the whole thing. It was very good. I digress,
No worries.
but it's good stuff, and it's MPT, and they put together great programming.
So, House Bill 165 is cross-filed by, the chair, actually, and you guys have sent it over. It's in slightly different forms. I will be keen, I prefer your form, which I think is slightly stronger. In short, it is, creating, stronger, teeth to auditing for municipalities and counties, and is not targeted at one specific locality at all. It's just, I think we can all agree we're in tough fiscal times right now. And if we are going to have a conversation about asking taxpayers for any more money, we need to make sure we're being a good steward of the money we're already asking them. And we are passing a lot of this money on to jurisdictions, and we need to make sure that they are submitting their audits and using those resources appropriately. So with that being said, the bill is in your hands. I am going to encourage my side to set the chair's version of the bill that is a little bit stronger than the version that we passed out.
Very good. And it is a great bill, and we have your senator to thank about it.
Yeah. Great sponsors on the Senate side.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Is someone here from SDAT on 174? Mr. Phillips?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dan Phillips on behalf of the Department of Assessments and Taxation. HB 174 would establish a $100 filing fee for an unsuccessful property tax appeal to the Maryland Tax Court by high-value commercial properties. In most neighboring jurisdictions, all property appeals, regardless of their assessed value, are subject to some sort of filing fee imposed either by the local circuit court or state tax court when real property assessment is appealed. Maryland's unique among its neighboring jurisdictions that it does not charge a fee for any property assessment appeal is filed. As a result, both the department's assessors and the Maryland Tax Court spend a disproportionate amount of resources responding to often unmerited appeals that are automatically filed by high-value commercial properties every assessment cycle and often every year, many of which are dismissed outright or for failure to appear on behalf of the appellant. Senate Bill 279 would give high-value commercial properties skin in the game by establishing a $100 filing fee made payable to the Maryland Tax Court if the appeal is unsuccessful. The bill limits the fee to be paid only for unsuccessful appeals by revenue-generating properties assessed in value of in excess of value of $5 million, and capture only those properties that take up the majority of the department's resources without burdening the average property owner. Accordingly, the department respectfully requests a favorable report.
Questions? We're familiar with this bill. We've been talking about it for a while. Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 200, Delegate Wilkins.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr.
That's
Chair.
amazing timing.
Yes, very good timing. Hello, distinguished members of the Senate Budget and Tax Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Janelle Wilkins, and I'm pleased to present HB 200. This is a bill that deals with strengthening our community schools, and the cross-file did pass both unanimously here in this committee and also in the Senate chamber. I'm asking for a favorable report. The bill, the House version and Senate version did pass in different versions. I am comfortable with the Senate version of the bill, and so I'd be happy for you to conform the House bill to the Senate version and pass it favorably. Thank you so much.
You had me at Senate version. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. House Bill 243. Is somebody from the administration on this? Oh, yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Corbett Webb, and I'm the State Tax Sale Ombudsman with the Maryland State Department of Assessments and Taxation. And I'll be joined shortly by one of my colleagues from DHCD. I would like to urge a favorable vote on House Bill 243, which would achieve critical equity goals for vulnerable homeowners across the state of Maryland. Every year, thousands of owner-occupied properties are sold at tax sale, and the impact on homeowners can be drastic. Many homeowners, particularly those who are elderly or those with disabilities, are unaware of delinquencies in tax payments or utility fees and enter tax sale before having an opportunity to rectify the situation. As a result, these homeowners pay up to 20% more than they would have in taxes and fees so they can stay in their homes. It is for this reason that the General Assembly established the Office of the State Tax Sale Ombudsman to help homeowners navigate the tax sale process and ideally avoid going to tax sale. This is also why the Homeowner Protection Program was created, which provides an alternative pathway to the typical tax sale process by paying all delinquent taxes and fees owed to local governments and private lien holders, which removes the homeowner from tax sale. The department then provides the homeowner with a loan repayment plan and works closely with them to identify tax credits and other resources to build a sustainable financial future. House Bill 243 builds on existing protections for homeowners at risk of entering or who are already in tax sale for delinquencies on water and sewer fees, and generally for homeowners at risk of entering tax sale foreclosure. This bill provides a targeted solution for homeowners who are struggling to meet their basic needs without imposing a substantial financial burden on local governments. Accordingly, the department respectfully requests a favorable report on House Bill 243. We want to thank the Department of Housing and Community Development and the Department of Aging for partnering with us on this legislation, and I'm happy to take any questions the committee may have.
Senator Elrith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. I've been reading some articles on this bill and have a little bit of a concern over an amendment that would have taken away the ability for these protections for renters. Can you speak to that amendment and the concerns raised publicly?
Sure, I think it might be better for a DHCD to address that amendment. But I will say there are so many good provisions in this bill that help homeowners statewide. Under current law, there's certain protections that only exist in Baltimore City.
Mm-hmm.
This would expand them to every county in the state, $1,000 minimum tax liability threshold, other protections for water and sewer. I do know that outside of this legislation, there's a number of bills in that would improve different protections for renters and for heirs, and those other pieces of legislation would probably be better addressed to solve those problems.
But this was amended specifically to remove those protections for Baltimore City residents, and we don't make decisions in this body based on what's just best for the state if it hurts a particular jurisdiction.
Sure, and again, I'm going to defer to DHCD. I wasn't directly involved in the amending process.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Senator Hellman.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask a similar question, and one of the effects, my understanding is that the city has had a protection. They enacted legislation to protect people from losing their homes in the event of overdue water bills, and that this would really turn that on its head, and that lots of people had the potential to be evicted as a result of this, have a very short period of time to make alternative living arrangements. Is that your understanding that this would happen too?
So this legislation enhances the protections related to water and sewer for owner occupied properties. So that would be for homeowners as you generally think of them and as they're defined legally. Non-owner occupied properties, which would be the rental units, that is not included in part of this legislation.
But it's my understanding that the way the bill was amended, it actually could have quite an effect on renters.
Yes, it would have an effect on renters.
And so are you disagreeing with how I'm characterizing the effect that it has?
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is, Mr. Chairman, is it possible if, I don't know if somebody from the department is here, they could respond?
Are they?
I know they were outside a couple minutes ago. I can run and grab them.
Ah, I see my friend.
Okay, there we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had questions about House Bill 243 and the impact that it could have on renters as it was amended that could potentially put vulnerable people in a position of being evicted when they have overdue water bills. Could you comment on that?
I think the possibility exists. I don't think that we've really dug into the numbers that much. I don't know if Department of Assessment and Taxation has the numbers on that specifically, but we have heard the same concerns as well.
And particularly about Baltimore City.
Particularly about Baltimore City because of the amendment to say owner occupied in front of the word residential. That's correct.
Okay, so do you share those concerns?
We have shared those concerns to an extent. I don't believe that Baltimore City has any plans to move forward on that, especially with their water plan, with the payment plan that they already have that's in existence. In talking with the city, there hasn't been a big push to move forward on something like that. So we don't necessarily share the same concerns at the same level that some of the advocates do at this point in time.
So my understanding, and tell me if you think differently, is that this has a potential to abrogate the protections that are currently in place under city law.
It does have the potential to abrogate those protections. Yes.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much. I'm gonna have to jockey the schedule a little bit, as I've got to get over to several committees on your side. So I'm going to quickly go through a couple delegation bills, mostly delegation bills that I have that are mine or my delegations. So 1450, House Bill 1450, and Senate Bill 1186. They're essentially identical. They're both task forces to study revenue options for school capital needs in Howard County. There's some date changes and who people report to, but I'm sure we'll figure that out along the way. Any questions? Okay. House Bill 1440 requires the Howard County Public Schools Board to publish the differences that they have made in the superintendent's proposed capital budget to their final budget. It's just a reporting requirement. Any questions? Buell? House Bill 1357 authorizes the county government to enter into payment in lieu of taxes agreements with property owners for providing voluntary moderate income housing units. Any questions? Buell? And then finally, we have House Bill 688, which is the cross to my bill, Senate Bill 616, which is Maryland Historical Trust and Historical and Cultural Museum Assistance Program. This was that grouping to put together some money to continue to support all of our institutions all across the state, all of our museums across the state. The House made an amendment to it, just altering the dollar amount, which is fine with me, but that's the fundamental difference. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to put it in the hands of our majority leader, and she can continue where we left off. The next one up is 341, Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. and now Madam Chair. It's nice to see all of you.
A lot here, you know.
Hey, you know what? We all wear many hats. It's good to see you all. For the record, Delegate Jared Solomon here to present House Bill 341. This is a bill that I think those of you who've been on the committee for a while know addresses an issue that we've tried to tackle for a long time. That our universities within the system and our state supported schools have a number of employees that are state employees but are not state supported. So that when the state gives out a cost of living adjustment, there's a small percentage of staff at every institution that while they get the COLA, the COLA does not come from the state. And so the universities themselves, the institutions themselves have to figure out how to budget for it. And so this is an issue we've talked about, I know for a number of years, at least that I've been on the committee. And so the bill as originally drafted would have essentially picked up the entire cost of living adjustment for those non-state supported employees fully at every institution. We wanted to sort of start the conversation, see potentially what the cost could be. As I'm sure you could imagine, the original fiscal note was fairly large. And so what we did in the amended bill that you now have in your possession when we passed it out of the House was to trim it down considerably to sort of pilot what this would look like. And we trimmed it down to 5 institutions, Bowie State, Coppin State, Morgan State, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and the University of Maryland Global Campus. The idea being that these are institutions within the state that have a fairly diverse faculty, and we thought that this could potentially go a long way in helping to cultivate and assist the universities in that staffing situation. We've shrinked the fiscal note down considerably. Again, this is a place to start. What usually winds up happening is, again, because these individuals are not supported through the state budget, the schools wind up increasing costs and fees on students or families to figure out ways to cover those staff. And again, we don't want to leave folks behind. So I think in a perfect world, we would have loved to have done this for all of our institutions. Again, we trimmed it down. So happy to take any questions and would urge a favorable report.
I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have House Bill 376, Prince George's County Delegation. Is Delegate Williams here?
Delegate Harrison, Vice Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm here, Andrea Harrison, Vice Chair of the Prince George's Delegation, here to present. And I actually have 3 bills before you this afternoon. If you'd like me to take them all at one time,
yes,
it's up to you. Okay.
You can.
The first bill, House Bill 376. Is a bill that requires the Prince George's County Board of Education to hire an independent consultant to complete a comprehensive study on the feasibility of locating the board headquarters. Currently, the headquarters for the Board of Education is located down in Upper Marlboro. It's a very, very old building, and there is no public transportation. And so we're asking the board to do a feasibility study to look at relocating that building, and they would have to pay for it. And so with that, we would ask a favorable report on that bill.
Okay, any questions? You good? Okay. House Bill 396.
House Bill, again, for the record, Andrea Harrison for the Prince George's County Delegation. House Bill 376 is a bill to allow the county government to use the proceeds from the sales and use tax on energy and fuel to meet state funding requirements for the Board of Education maintenance of effort provision. Currently, we have that bill was put in years ago to allow the county to go above maintenance of effort in addition to what we have, because our school system sorely needs funds. Basically, what we would be doing is moving money from one place to another, but it does require legislation in order to do so. So we're not taking any money away, we're just reallocating.
Okay.
And so we would ask for a favorable report on that. It is supported by the county council, the county executive. And then House Bill 398, if it's okay for me to move on.
Go ahead.
House Bill 398, again, Andrea Harrison for the record of Prince George's County Delegation, is very similar. And this does the same thing for the telecommunications sales tax that we have. We would just be moving money from one place to another to allow us to meet the needs of the residents of the county.
Senator Jackson.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to let you know the Prince George's Senate delegation has passed these bills out as well, and the letters should be in our possession.
Okay.
For the bills, so exact posture for those 3 bills.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And we request a favorable report. Appreciate your time.
House Bill 428, Delegate Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Delegate Vaughn Stewart, this is House Bill 428. I want to just start by thanking this committee and also thanking the chairman and the vice chair in absentia for your work on the Senate crossfile of this bill, which passed out of the Senate. And also this committee found budget for it, money for it rather in the budget, which I'm deeply appreciative of. For as a reminder, this bill, which was crossfiled by Senator Heddleman, provides a new rental assistance program for community schools so that students who are benefiting from all the dollars we're pumping into community schools do not have their wraparound support services yanked away from them if they were to be evicted. The bill went through some work on both the House and the Senate side, mostly involving putting the onus and the responsibility on DHCD to run the program rather than MSDE. And there is a late breaking amendment from the local school boards that has been submitted to the committee that's minor and technical, but is in that vein. And it's meant to provide a more flexible role for the community school coordinators so that their role and duties are not so prescriptive as outlined in the original bill, and that it's a little bit more flexible to them so that this bill doesn't unduly burden them because they've got a lot on their plate. So that amendment is into the committee, but thank you again. And with that, I urge a favorable report.
Okay, I don't see any questions.
Thank
Thank you very much. House Bill 490, Delegate Jones. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon. For the record, I am Delegate Dana Jones. I'm here presenting HB 490. I want to thank the committee and friends so much. I know that we are all dealing with a lot. Our hearts and prayers are obviously in Baltimore. So in addition to our legislative business, I know we have a lot on our plate. I'll be brief. In 2021, this committee passed HB 711, which established a subtraction modification up to $1,000 for donations of diapers and other hygiene products to eligible charity entities. At present, the comptroller has complete data for tax year 22, but in that year alone, this modification led to the donation of over $5 million in product to those in need throughout our state. HB 490 cross-filed with your very own Senator Zucker will simply extend this for an additional 3 years. As we all know, good policy revisits its decisions for review every couple of years. So this is just simply an extension of 3 years. This bill did pass, I should note, Ways and Means as well as the House floor unanimously. You have my written testimony, which goes into great detail on the issue. I'm happy to answer any questions on this. And with that, I respectfully urge a favorable report, please.
Thank you very much. Any questions? I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
House Bill 491, Delegates Fair and Bofo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I'm Delegate Chris Fair presenting House Bill 491. Public policy around technology is always rife for interesting debate. Balancing the positive impacts of technology with the potential harm that abuse of that technology is a worthwhile discussion for the legislative body today and always. Today, HB 491 seeks to highlight a way that our body can empower our government agencies to conduct their business, bringing greater parity between real property owners in Maryland and ensuring we are effectively and fairly following our state constitution. As required, each property in Maryland will be assessed every 3 years. This process of well over 2 million properties in Maryland creates great strain on our sometimes dwindling resources at the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. Combined with the appeals process and following updated state legislative initiatives can easily cause unmanageable challenges for the necessary resources and bandwidth. HB 491 expands on an existing program that exists in numerous counties throughout the state. It allows for SSTAT to harness technology through geographic and photographic imagery to assess properties in real time. This guarantees that each property gets a current, fair, and balanced assessment that does not include having to burden the homeowner by assessors being forced to show up to your property. Additionally, the use of oblique aerial photography, which means photography at various axle angles, allows assessors to properly measure buildings without having to be physically on site. Additionally, the storage provision of this bill will help create and maintain an invaluable resource for both SSTAT and our residents.
In real time, SSTAT will be able to provide guidance and imagery around their current assessment process and be able to better communicate the reasoning for their assessment value with the resident. I urge the Budget and Taxation Committee to give the employees at SSTAT the tools that they need to do their work and use technology as a benefit for all of us. I urge a favorable report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
House Bill 507, Delegates Buckle and Heimbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Delegate Jason Buckle, HB 507 is modified, amended by the House, is now an enabling bill which allows Allegheny and Garrett counties and municipalities therein to create a property tax credit of up to $10,000 imposed upon an eligible new construction dwelling. The bill is basically, it came out of the task force on Western Maryland's economic future that was chaired a few years ago by Senator Edwards, former of this panel, and myself. We co-chaired it. It's taken a couple of years. The Ways and Means Committee amended out the income tax credit that was originally part of the bill. And the rationale for the bill simply is that there are a dearth of new housing starts in Allegheny County and frankly in Garrett County, other than the Deep Creek Lake region where most of the homes are $1 million and up. And part of that reason is because it simply costs more money to build a home in Maryland than it does in our neighboring counties in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. This bill helps to incentivize that for builders and homeowners to buy and stay in Allegheny and Garrett counties and helps to offset some of the conditions are. It has a sprinkler system, septic system, and is wired for broadband, things that we either require or want. And our neighboring states, at least the counties near where we live, don't sometimes require, and therefore their houses are cheaper. This is a tool in the toolbox for the local jurisdictions to hopefully begin to spur additional housing construction in the region.
Okay. I don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
House Bill 689, Delegate Frazier Hidalgo. Not here. House Bill 764, Delegate Shetty.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair and friends on the Budget and Tax Committee. For the record, Delegate Emily Shetty here to request a favorable report on HB 764. So what this bill does is two things. One is related to the Bus Rapid Transit Fund, and the other is related to the Blue Line Corridor Fund. So on BRT, the bill decouples the capitalization of the BRT fund from deposits that are required to be made under current law by the comptroller. This was sort of a small drafting error that occurred a few years ago when the fund was initially established. But what the fund does is it provides grants to local governments that support the construction of BRT projects. But as drafted right now, the current law doesn't have any predictability on how much or if any dollars would actually flow to the fund. So on the Blue Line Corridor Facility Fund, it codifies certain allotments in fiscal 24 and 25 to be transferred into the Blue Line Corridor Facility Fund from the State Lottery Fund. This is just an acceleration of the receipt of revenue they're anticipating to get anyway. It has no budget impact in the out years. So with that, I request a favorable report on HB 764, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Delegate Frazier Hidalgo. House Bill 689.
Hello, members. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present House Bill 689. My name is David Frazier Hidalgo, a delegate. For the record, House Bill 689 is a point of sale. There is no fiscal note to this bill because it essentially, the fiscal note is the same as it has been for the last couple of years. And all this does is move your EV incentive. Traditionally, when you buy an EV, there's a state incentive, and it's an excise tax credit that you have to apply for. And this bill puts that incentive in the same exact posture as the federal incentive. The federal incentive, albeit is a federal tax credit, this is a rebate at the point of sale. So when you go to buy your electric vehicle, it affords you the opportunity to get that rebate right at the purchase time of the vehicle. And so it allows you to realize those savings much earlier, thus allowing our consumers to make a more well-informed decision on numbers. Just recently, I think the automobile or the dealer association came with some last-minute amendments that you probably will have in your packet. I'm happy to discuss some of those amendments. It was just brought to my attention last night, unfortunately, but there are a significant number of amendments. So if anybody would like to talk about those amendments, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you. Senator Alfred. No? Yes?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
House Bill 765, Delegate Wells.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Melissa Wells, here presenting on House Bill 765. I do want to clarify that although it's not the official cross file because there was some challenges with drafting, this is in the same posture as Senate Bill 321, which was sponsored by Senator Jackson. And so being that I won't belabor the point about what this bill does because it does about the same thing, I will clarify that we did have some clarifying amendments in the House, just basically stating that this applies to residential homes, that the tax credit on the property side for residential would not apply to a single residential property. So with that, I ask for a favorable report.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a few questions about your cross file.
And I believe we have that cross file on our vote list in Ways and Means this afternoon as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. House Bill 780, Delegate Embry.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. Delegate Elizabeth Embry here to present House Bill 780. It is not a cross-filed bill, so it is heard for the first time. So the bill adds security services with a contract in excess of $1 million to the category of human services and other services that require a competitive sealed proposal. And that means, well, in the alternative, what would currently apply would be a competitive sealed bid, which is basically lowest bid where cost is the only factor. And a competitive sealed proposal allows the agency, the procurement officer and the unit to consider things like the capacity of the vendor and the training of the workers, the job standards of the employer. This was supported both by the industry and by SEIU because it benefits both and treat security services, I think, appropriately like other services where the human beings and the workers are really the core of it and their quality of their work matters. So with that, I will ask for your favorable report.
Okay, any questions from committee? I don't see any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Fisher, Calvert County Delegation.
Good afternoon. For the record, Delegate Mark Fisher for HB 835 for the Calvert County delegation. This is a local preference bill for Calvert County. It just allows Calvert County, authorizes them to institute a local preference for procurement. It's supported by my esteemed Senator Michael Jackson and Senator Jack Bailey, as well as the NAACP. This is their primary objective this session.
There's Jackson.
Come on.
And Madam Chair, we have there's a letter.
There is a letter. Okay.
Get a letter.
All right, good.
In support.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Tomlinson, House Bill 850. No. How about House Bill 894, Delegate Chisholm?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Budget and Taxation Committee. It's good to be across the street in this land of milk and honey. I don't make it across there very often. For the record, I'm Delegate Brian Chisholm here to present HB 894, which prohibits foreign countries that have been identified by the federal government as posing a significant risk to our national security through the International Traffic in Arms Regulation from participating in our state procurement process. Why is this bill important? On January 31st, 2024, less than 2 months ago, Director Christopher Wray warned Congress that foreign adversaries such as Chinese government-backed hackers have attempted to infect and target American critical infrastructure including water treatment plants, electrical grids, and transportation systems with the intent to cause real-world harm and wreak havoc through economic espionage and theft of innovation and personal data. From the Politico in November 29, 2023, federal government investigating multiple hacks of U.S. water utilities. CNN, June of 2023, Russian cyber criminals have launched a global cyber attack affecting several U.S. federal agencies that attacks exploited vulnerabilities in software used in these agencies. The New York Times in 2023 said the U.S. Department of is investigating Chinese malware hidden in networks controlling power grid, communication systems, and water supplies for American military bases. The malware poses a potential threat to disrupt U.S. military operations, especially in scenarios involving conflict like those with Taiwan. Furthermore, many of these countries we wish to prohibit are some of the most egregious atrocities of crimes against humanity, forced child labor, sexual violence, inhumane and intentional, causing great suffering through mental or physical harm. We've also learned in the last 6 months that Russian hackers infiltrated America's electrical grid in an attempted attack on the NASDAQ Stock Exchange, the Bowman Avenue Dam in New York, and the Wolf Creek Nuclear Power Plant in Kansas. Why is this important in Maryland? It was surprising for me to learn that the federal government prohibits all of these countries listed in ITAR from doing procurement, but it leaves every state to make that decision for themselves. And if you think about the state of Maryland, we really are the heartbeat of the country. We have NSA, we have Fort Meade, we have Washington, D.C. right on our border. So we're an important part of what we see. And so I also learned during the COVID that we started to bring certain people into our procurement process. Luckily, we caught it in time, but Blue Flame was one of them. We bought $12 million worth of masks from Blue Flame to find out they were a Chinese-owned company. We tried to stop it, but we had already sent $6 million. That was a small drop in the bucket compared to what California did. Gavin Newsom almost got taken for $500 million. We also have in our procurement system Lexmark. Here's what I've learned about Lexmark. Lexmark has been restricted from U.S. military and intelligence agencies due to their connection to the Chinese government and military. While federal policy directs information security at the federal levels, states are to determine their own security standards, making states vulnerable to intrusion through the purchase of these risky Chinese technology products. Lexmark can access sensitive personal and financial information held by courts, police departments, election departments, education departments, children and family services, and other social services providers and agencies. In 2019 and 2020, we spent $61,000 on Lexmark products. We also do a lot of business with Syngenta. Syngenta, I don't know if we actually do this through the procurement process, but they're owned by ChemChina, a Chinese state-owned enterprise that was bought in 2017 for $43 billion and does a significant amount of farming products in Maryland. Syngenta has its own history of problems. Syngenta was just found in U.S. court to be using a ban of 3 weed killers, and they also found that the EPA broke the law in the approval process. So obviously our farming industry is very important to us. Our security industry is very important to us. And if the federal government won't allow these countries into a procurement process, I think it's sound government for us to prohibit them from our procurement process as well. With that, I ask for a favorable report on HB 894.
I don't see any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
House Bill 918, the Speaker and State Treasurer.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Laura Addis. I'm the Deputy Treasurer for Public Policy here today for Treasurer Derek Davis. House Bill 918 should look familiar to you as it's a cross file of Senate Bill 777, which this committee and the full Senate passed unanimously. The reason that you're likely hearing it today is it's in a slightly different posture than Senate Bill 777 was. So the House preferred that the treasurer stay on the MES board and kept the quorum requirement the same. Of course, the treasurer's preference would be, as the bill came in, to allow him to step off of the board. But the treasurer and our office would defer to your wisdom as to which is more appropriate. The bills are otherwise the same, except for a difference in the purpose paragraph. So the treasurer would come off of the other three boards and the comptroller would step onto the two other boards that she's not currently serving on. So we would respectfully request a favorable with amendments report on House Bill 918.
Okay. Questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
House Bill 928, Washington County Delegation. This is a questionable one. I'm seeing this Quarterman here.
Easiest bills you'll hear all day. Delegate Weigel, Madam Chair and members of the committee, good to be with you. House Bill 928 simply authorizes Washington County to advertise for bids as long as the contract amount is not in excess of $100,000. The exception to advertise is for vehicle purchases only. The threshold for all other contracts remains at $50,000. I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 928, sorry.
I don't
Can
see any
I also
questions.
do 1021?
Sure.
Again, Delegate Weigel presenting House Bill 1021. It's also a Washington County delegation bill seeking additional bonding authority in an amount of $50 million for Washington County. Their current authorization remains at about 29 million. So adding the 50, it would give them enough bonding authority based on current levels for the next 4 to 5 years. Total county debt's 194 million and their bond rating is maintained at AA+. I ask for a favorable report on House Bill 1021.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
House Bill 950, Delegate Edelson. Sorry to make you wait so long. You've been sitting there a while.
It's okay. Patience is a virtue, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Delegate Mark Edelson, here for the record for HB 950. I represent District 46 in Baltimore City. The purpose of this bill is to codify a minimum appropriation for the locally operated transit systems, the LOTS program, in FY26 forward. The bill has no impact on our current budget and does not require any new money going forward. It's simply codifying the FY24 appropriation in future years so that all of our local jurisdictions can plan and program safely in the knowledge that the funds will be allocated in future years. As we all know, these systems are critical for every single one of our communities, have existed in some form of another for over 40 years, and unfortunately have been flat funded or reduced in funding for almost the past decade, despite increasing costs of vehicles, gas operators, et cetera. In addition to fixed route bus, they also provide services for elderly, low to moderate income seniors, non-elderly persons with disabilities, and dialysis and cancer patients needing to access treatment. In the House hearing, the bill received favorable testimony from Harford County, St. Mary's County, Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, the Transportation Association of Maryland, TAM, the City of Ocean City, and many others. Frankly, all of our local jurisdictions request additional LOTS funding from MTA every year, and this bill would give them some comfort knowing that the funds will be there in future years. This bill passed the House with bipartisan support. Happy to take any questions. I urge a favorable report on HB 950.
Thank you very much, Delegate. Any questions? All right, thank you very much. And just for the public to know, people are in and out, delegates are in and out, senators are in and out. We've got a bunch of committee stuff going on, but we're all paying attention. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll now move on to House Bill 1016, Frederick County. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Delegate April Miller and here to present House Bill 1016 on behalf of the Frederick County delegation. I'd like to thank the chair and the whole committee for the opportunity to present this bill today. This bill is in response to a Frederick County related issue to school construction. The bill as written would create a work group that would bring together state and county partners with the goal of finding funding solutions to meet the capital needs of the county school system. Frederick County is the fastest growing county in the state, and as a result, our ability to meet the demand for additional classroom space through school construction has been sorely tested. To fulfill Maryland's blueprint for education plans for pre-kindergarten at a minimum, we will need 7 additional pre-K classrooms across the county to be built. And an additional factor that is exacerbating this issue is the age of the existing school buildings in the county, with several schools constructed in the 1960s nearing the end of their useful life, barring significant renovation. Student population growth combined with our aging crop of school buildings has pushed Frederick County to the breaking point, and as the combination of the county and state funds that are dedicated to school construction are projected to fall far short of estimated needs in the coming year. FCPS currently has 34 buildings that are older than 35 years, with 7 older than 70. And there are currently 3 new schools, 5 limited renovations, 1 addition, 3 replacements, 5 replacements with additions, 1 modernization in the 10-year capital plan, which includes 1 new and 2 replacement high schools, which will each cost upwards of $140 million. Our county executive is also conducting a feasibility study for a critically needed new career and tech center. One example that epitomizes the challenges Frederick County is facing is Oakdale Elementary School. The school is currently at 176% of its state rated capacity and is in a high growth area. As a result of this situation, Frederick County Public Schools has been exploring options for dealing with overcrowding. And one of the ideas under consideration would be to bus an entire grade of students to a nearby church or lower capacity school until a new area school is completed within 3 years. Due to the long backup of school construction and renovation projects, similar challenges without adequate solutions will become increasingly common. The work group prescribed in this bill will bring relevant state and county stakeholders to the table to develop a novel funding solution to meet the unique needs of Frederick County. This work group is modeled off of similar legislation from the Prince George's County Work Group that was authorized in 2018. And our hope is that it can deliver similar and novel funding findings that are tailored to meet the unique needs of Frederick County. House Bill 1016 really needs your support. It passed 125-0 on the House floor. You should have a delegation level letter of support, and I would appreciate a favorable finding.
Well, thank you very much, Delegate. Any questions? Don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You too. We'll now move on to House Bill 1082. Delegate Smith, great to see you. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Delegate Stephanie Smith here to present House Bill 1082. I'm great to be before all distinguished members of Senate Budget and Taxation. House Bill 1082 is the same bill, 1196, House Bill 1196 that you all passed. We passed out of both chambers. There was just a quick amendment that we concurred to, but in the last waning minutes of session, it was like the next bill up. So we're just bringing it back, and it just ensures that we have implementation coordinators for the blueprint at all 24 local education agencies. So we do hope to receive a favorable report as we've had in the past on this bill.
Thank you very much, Delegate. Any questions? Sammy, thank you very much.
Can I do HB 1334?
Sure.
This bill, many of you, for the record, Delegate Stephanie Smith here to present House Bill 1334. Many of you are familiar with Project CORE that began in fiscal year, I believe, 2016, started by our previous governor, that was really focused on having demolition funds for strategic demolition across the Baltimore City region, particularly focused on communities that already had high rates of vacancy. This program was actually going to sunset in the next fiscal year. This removes the sunset.
Great job.
Great.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Delegate Fillmore, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You'll be doing 1192, I believe?
Yes.
Perfect.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, my name is Delegate Jessica Feldmark. Pleasure to present House Bill 1192. This bill did not have a cross file, so but luckily it's fairly simple and straightforward. This is dealing with the security provisions around video lottery employee licensing. And as you know, we have some strong safeguards in place with prohibitions on criminal backgrounds. What this bill aims to do is simply narrow those safeguards to the positions where they're really most critical and open up some second chance job opportunities for individuals returning to the community, as well as help our casino operators with workforce issues in terms of the labor pool. So basically, this bill would say that if an individual has a conviction, active parole, probation, or prosecution, as long as it's involving a non-violent misdemeanor offense that does not involve gambling, and as long as the position they're applying for is not directly related to the operation of gaming or security, then the video lottery operation licensee can request that they be allowed to receive the license, notwithstanding that criminal background. And really, as I said before, this is about narrowing it to the positions where it's most important, where it's jobs that are directly related to the operation of gaming or security. If we have folks who are working in food service or hospitality in a casino, those are jobs that are perfectly appropriate second chance jobs. And frankly, they're jobs that our casinos are having trouble filling. So broadening the pool of eligible candidates helps them as well. So with that, I ask for a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Colleagues, will now turn our attention to House Bill 1212. And I know you're not Delegate Lewis, but all good.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not Delegate Lewis. For the record, Henry Snur here to testify on behalf of Delegate Lewis on House Bill 1212. At the heart of this bill is the establishment of a Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion within the state retirement and pension system. This role is crucial in acknowledging the undeniable value that a diverse workforce brings to the realm of asset management. The 2022 Diversity and Asset Management Report underscores the substantial evidence that diverse asset managers often deliver equal or superior investment returns compared to their less diverse counterparts. Furthermore, the report highlights the critical importance of broadening access to the asset management industry for underrepresented groups, noting the significant benefits of diverse perspectives in enhancing decision-making and fostering innovative solutions. Additionally, House Bill 1212 seeks to codify the role of the Director of the Governance Program within the Investment Division, ensuring this pivotal position maintains a direct line of communication with the SRPS Board. A measure essential for safeguarding the independence and efficacy of the director, allowing them to champion our goals for diversity among asset managers without fear of repercussion. Such structural protections are commonly employed across government entities to ensure that advocates for diversity and small business engagement can operate freely and effectively. It's a recognition that real change often requires challenging conversations and bold advocacy, which should be encouraged rather than inhibited. Marrying these two themes into House Bill 1212, we champion a future where diversity in asset management and financial stewardship is not an afterthought, but a foundational principle. This legislation signals to every Marylander, regardless of their background, that there is a place for them at the table of high finance and that their unique perspectives are invaluable assets to our state's prosperity. With this bill, we're ensuring SRPS has the independent voices and staffers who are empowered to have the difficult conversations we need to improve our pension system. For these reasons, I urge a favorable report.
Thank you very much for that great testimony. Any questions? Thank you very much. Good to see you. Committee will now turn our attention to House Bill 1252. Delegate Metzger.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. No, I am not Delegate Metzger. I am considerably younger and I am considerably lighter. But anyway, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. For the record, I am Paul Blitz. I am Delegate Messer's Chief of Staff. And the delegate respectfully requests, Mr. Chairman and committee, a feasible study to conduct a feasibility study about the licensing and placement of slot machine, video machines at Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport. How many times have we been stuck with a layover or a canceled flight? And I know I have for several hours with nothing left to do. And you can only read so many books that they have in magazines. This would be a grand opportunity to allow travelers to play machines, to bring revenue into the state without raising taxes. And perhaps some of this money could be used for the Blueprint for America's Future Fund. Originally, the delegate thought that the State Lottery Commission and Gaming Control Commission would conduct this feasibility study. However, under further guidance and exploration, he felt the Maryland Aviation Administration might be a better choice to conduct this feasibility study. To consider logistics with other items for consideration. For these reasons that I have just given, Delegate Mesker and I respectfully request a favorable report on House Bill 1252. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. We'll now turn our attention to House Bill 850. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee members. For the record, my name is Delegate Chris Tomlinson. I represent District 5. So the purpose of House Bill 850 is to improve the small business preference program by making the program more attractive so that it's actually used by state agencies. And I believe that these changes to the law will lead to an increase in the number of small businesses and veteran-owned businesses that are awarded state contracts. So the state currently has 2 small business procurement programs that are used throughout the state. One is the Small Business Reserve Program, typically referred to as SBR, and then there's the Small Business Preference Program, which is what my bill is focusing on. So with the Small Business Preference Program, the way it works is if a solicitation is advertised as having this designation, a Maryland certified business is given a price preference of 5% and an additional 2% if the business is a veteran owned, or additional 3% if the business is owned by a disabled veteran. And so the way that really works is if you have two bidders, one is a small business and one is not a small business. Say the small business puts in a bid for $100,000. Or the non-small business puts in a bid for $100,000 and the small business puts in one for $105,000, even though the small business was a little bit higher, but because they get a 5% preference, they would be awarded the contract. That's the current law. That's currently the program. So what my bill would do is it would expand the program to be able to be used across the state. Currently, only 4 agencies are able to use it. That's BGS, MDOT, University of Maryland, and Morgan State University are the only ones allowed to use the program. And this would expand it to 68 units or agencies across the executive branch. The other big thing it does is there's currently a goal of 15% across the state to award contractors through the Small Business Reserve Program. This bill would allow that 15% goal to be also achieved through this program, the Small Business Preference, as well as allow contracts that are awarded small businesses that on the front end weren't designated either Small Business Preference or Small Business Reserve, but we ended up awarding it to a small business regardless. So all of that would be able to be counted towards that 15% goal. As you can see on your floor system, written testimony was submitted from the Veterans Caucus, MDOT, and DGS, which is the agency that oversees the Office of State Procurement. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee has, and I look forward to a favorable report. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you very much, Delegate, for your testimony. Are there any questions for the delegate? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anyone else we left out here. So committee, that ends today's